Welcome back, Truth Seekers. This is the Athanasius Report, and I am your host, Athanasius. It's been another interesting week, ladies and gentlemen, so let's go ahead and dive right on into it. We had this week the economic plans of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton released to the general public. And at first glance, well, actually, no, not at first glance. Let's just call it what it is. Okay, the Democrats came out immediately after the Trump economic plan and immediately derided it as, oh, it offers nothing new, no solutions. Decried it as, oh, it's just trickle down economics, which we know never works. Like, no, it actually did work back, when Reagan tried it, but you people don't want to admit it because your economic plan sucks. And your whole gambit is to try to cause enough fear and loathing within people to where they won't vote for Donald Trump. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here. So, what I did, ladies and gentlemen, is I came up with the top 8 things in each of the economic speeches that are good or bad. And you can use this for your friends, your family, for anybody that's still on the fence about Trump and whether or not he would be a better candidate over Hillary and so forth, or any of the other third parties there. So hopefully you will be able to understand what all is being said, because there's a lot of misinformation that's coming out about Trump's economic plan, that, and also with Hillary's economic plan, that the media is not reporting on as well. So let's just go ahead and dive into the first thing here. Trump's economic plan highlights that he is going to cut taxes. He is going to make it so that we put more money into our pockets. And this is a good thing, because the more money that we have in our pockets, the more that we are likely to spend or to save, which means that we're not as dependent upon the government in our retirement. Hillary's plan wants to raise taxes. She is going to take money out of our pockets and put it into the bloated leviathan that is the government. Now, there is an economic theory, or actually, no, it's not theory. I don't know if it's a law. I forgot what it's called, but there is an economic axiom that talks about the continual expansion of wealth in with regards to private sector versus public sector. Essentially, it goes along the lines of, if you put money into the private sector, that money will multiply in its earnings as it travels through the remainder of the private sector. So if I go to McDonald's and I buy a burger, the money that I spend at McDonald's is going to provide jobs for the people in the McDonald's restaurant, going to provide jobs for the suppliers who are, or the truckers that are bringing supplies to and from the restaurant, to the warehouses that are holding all the supplies going from the fields out to the restaurants, the farmers that grow the food, to the construction workers that have to maintain the roads. I mean, there is an economic plus to having the dollars stay within the private sector. When you take money out and put it into the public sector, that money becomes lost, because how best describe this? Whereas the whereas dollar going to the private sector gives jobs to everybody, and then by that extension, they get money into their pockets, so which they can buy goods from other places, and that can further expand jobs in that market as well. And then those people working in those markets get, and the continual effect in the on the public sector side. When you put money into the public sector, all it does is just pays for what all happens within the public sector. There is no expansion of wealth. There is no trickle down economic benefit to just putting it solely within the federal government. As soon as the government gets it, they're going to spend it, and it's going to stay within their own little world there. So it's not going to go out. Very rarely does it go out to outside markets or outside businesses that are not connected to the federal government. So that is economic expansion that is lost through just taking in more taxes. And that's the biggest difference between Trump's plan and Hillary's plan. Trump puts more money in our pockets. Hillary is going to take more money out. And then if people wanted to say, oh, well, that's not true. Well, okay, let's look at her speech earlier in the week, before the the speech she gave in Detroit, or no, in Michigan. No, Donald gave it in Detroit. She gave it somewhere else in Michigan, where she was on camera saying that we are going to raise taxes on the middle class. She loves saying that the Democrats love using that stupid phrase of we're going to make sure everybody pays their fair share. Well, if everybody was really going to pay their fair share, then why is it that 49% of quote unquote citizens in America don't pay taxes? And essentially, what you're doing by raising taxes is you are raising them on those that the biggest chunk that pay, the biggest chunk that pay, which is the middle class. It is not the quote unquote 10%. It is not the quote unquote 1%, even though they do end up paying the most taxes in the country. But the biggest pool of taxpayers is the middle class. Anyway, sorry, get on a rant here. I'm going to try to focus here. Second thing about both these economic plans: Trump is going to cut regulations. Hillary is going to increase regulations. Trump understands that a lot of businesses' costs come from the regulations that the governments, federal, state, local, put upon the business in order to comply. And these can be anything from OSHA standards to health services to the stupid Obamacare, making sure that employers are paying for health insurance for their employees. They work over a certain so many hours. I mean, a lot of the cost of doing business comes from just trying to comply with what stupid regulation the government comes up with next. And a lot of these regulations, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, we shouldn't have any regulation whatsoever. No, I believe that, when it comes to like safety standards, when it comes to like health and cleanliness, making sure that you have soap on station, that, people are washing their hands so they don't spread disease, that you don't contaminate raw meat with vegetables. I mean, things like that. Okay, that makes sense. But it gets out of hand when you start having things like the sink has to be exactly X amount of inches deep, and you have to have 3 separate sinks, and each sink has to be filled with a different soap to prevent or to fully clean, and your people have to wear this specific type of shoe when they're walking in the restaurant, or you have to have, I mean, it's just when you start piling on these little nitpicky regulations, what it does is it hurts the little guy. It hurts those family businesses that don't have a lot of money that can absorb the cost in them. By trying to comply with these regulations, what ends up happening is one of several things. First thing is that these businesses are either going to pass the cost on to the customer, because why should they have to bear the full brunt of the cost when they could, raise the prices of the goods by a few cents or what have you, and just absorb the cost through us. So we end up paying more because of these regulations. We, the consumer, end up paying more. The second thing that they'll do is that they'll save money another way by cutting employees. And you're seeing this with Obamacare, where companies that I think if you're above like 50 employees or whatever, you have to provide health insurance for everybody. So what did some small businesses do? Well, they cut employees to get below that number so they didn't have to incur that cost. The other thing that they did was that they also cut hours of the employees, because you had to be above, I think it's like 30 hours for the employee had to work 30 hours for them to qualify to have health benefits, or for the employer to be responsible for giving them health benefits. So they cut them to like 29 hours. So now people are working more part-time than they are for full-time jobs. And they're still not getting the health care benefits, and they're still, paying out the ass for the Obamacare exchange and so forth. So there is a negative effect to these regulations. Trump wants to cut them. Hillary wants to expand them. She wants to make it so that she uses the disguise of making sure that big businesses are playing fair with everybody else. No, that is not what's happening. What is happening is that big businesses are lobbying the government and buying influence with Hillary Clinton, and making it so that these regulations come out to choke out the smaller competition. And then they either absorb the competition, or the competition just dies out because they can't afford to stay in business. So So don't buy into this malarkey that regulations are there to keep the big guys from taking over or so. No, the regulations are there to help the big businesses stay in big business because they can absorb the cost more than the little guys can. Third point, Trump wants to cut the business tax from 40% to 15%. Hillary does not want to lower this tax rate. Now, this is different than the point I made in point number 1 about Trump wanting to cut taxes for the middle class. This is for business, okay? When a business makes a profit, they have to pay taxes on that profit. So they're now currently paying about 40%, which means that everybody from the big giants like Walmart and Target and McDonald's to the little mom and pop shops down on Main Street, USA, all have to pay 40%. Now think about this for a second. Who do you think that hurts more? Yes, it does hurt the mom and pop shops more because they're the ones that unfortunately don't have the large infrastructure, the multitude of stores to be able to make up the cost of those taxes. And at the same time, all those big stores as well, they're getting tired of having to pay that much. And you have companies like Carrier air conditioners going down to Mexico, Nabisco leaving. You have Pfizer trying to go over to Ireland. I think was it Burger King? I think moved up into Canada. Why? Because the tax rates over in those countries are significantly lower. Some as low as like 12, 13, 15%. So think about it from a business standpoint. If you had to pay 40 cents out of every dollar that you made in taxes in America, but you hop across the ocean and go to a place like Ireland where you only pay, I think it's like 15 cents for every dollar that you make in taxes, well, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go with the lower cost because you have a responsibility to your stock owners, and you also have a need to be able to make sure that your company will continue to thrive. If all you're doing is pissing money away in taxes, then you're not bringing in enough profit to be able to expand your business. Profit is not an evil thing, ladies and gentlemen. Profit is a good thing. Profit means that the company has extra income to either hire more employees to expand their business and, by extension, hire more employees, or to offer products at a lower cost, because now if they're making X amount of dollars, well, they realize, well, maybe we don't have to have our prices this high. We could cut it a little bit there, undercut the competition a little bit, get more customers to us, because in the long run, the more customers that we have, the more money that we'll make, even if we cut our prices or whatever. It's not about the cost so much as it is trying to get people to come in when it comes to selling the products. I mean, if you have a great car that you want to sell for $12,000, well, it's going to be a great car, but if people don't have $12,000 in their pocket, they're going to go with a cheaper, less, luxurious option for $8,000. But if you can somehow give businesses the opportunity to make that same $12,000 luxurious car, but now they can sell it for $9,000, okay? More people would be inclined to say, you know what, for an extra $1,000, I get a lot more luxury than what I would get with this $8,000 car. And so that's how you get people to spend their money. Is you make it so that the businesses can make a profit selling the best product at the lowest cost. This is an economic law. Anyway, the fourth thing about this. The fourth thing about the economic plans. Trump wants to kill the death tax. Hillary does not. She wants to keep it going. Now, what is the death tax? This started way back, I think it was the early 1900s, and it came as a progressive idea that all of these quote-unquote millionaires and rich types were dying off and leaving their vast fortunes to their kids. Well, government never misses an opportunity to try to appropriate money from the quote-unquote rich to help out their causes or to help out the little guy. I mean, that's the whole big thing about the progressives. It's redistribution of wealth. And that's what this is. It's the death tax is essentially saying we're going to penalize you for being rich. We're going to penalize you for being successful because you should not be rich. You should not be successful. You shouldn't have been able to, sell a product that made you super rich, or invest in a railroad that turned out to be very lucrative, or come up with a website that everybody uses and now you're a gazillionaire. The current death tax rate is 40%. What does that mean? Well, let's say that you had a personal wealth of $100,000 that you wanted to give to your children, pass it on, whether it was a business, property, whatever it was, okay? Government is going to take 40% of that value, $100,000, and just take it right off the top. So that means that you have to pay $40,000 in taxes to the government for dying. Now, where this really becomes an issue is where the government continues to say that, oh, this is for the super rich, this is for those that could absorb the cost. No, the way the tax bracket is set now, they have it so that family farms, family businesses above a certain monetary value, which I believe for 2015, 2016, it was $5,430,000, at least according to SharonOffDiamond.com, gets hit with this. So you're seeing a lot of family farms being forced to sell in order to essentially save the farm. Whenever the patriarch or whoever owns the farm dies, they can't give it to the children because the children then have to pay an exorbitant amount of tax in order to be able to receive the land. And in order for them to actually, save the land, so forth, keep it from the government taking it, they have to sell it to bigger farming corporations. The same thing goes with small businesses. I'll give you an example from the town I lived in. There was a restaurant located in town, owned by a family. Had been in business for close to 30-something years. The father of the family started it. I think he was an immigrant, came over, started this business 30-something years ago. Anyway, he died suddenly. It was completely unexpected. He just had a heart attack in the middle of the night. Nobody saw it coming. So the business ended. The business closed for death in the family, and it never reopened because when the family started doing the taxes and everything, they couldn't afford the death tax that was imposed upon the business. And so they shuttered their doors for good. And for those that still aren't convinced about this, let me just give you the number here, okay? Let's just say that the minimum amount of the value, $5,430,000, they just mentioned, was the value of this family farm, okay? Hypothetically speaking. And I die and I want to give it to my kids or whatever, they have to pay at that 40% rate $2,172,000 in death tax. Who here has $2,172,000 at their disposal? Do you now see the problem with the death tax and why it must go? And Donald Trump is willing to do it. Hillary is not. And don't listen to Hillary's BS about how Trump is trying to get rid of the death tax so he can pass his fortune on to his kids and they don't have to pay a red cent. Regardless of whether or not Trump's kids actually get to benefit from that change, okay? Think about the little families that, not as rich as Donald Trump, but they put everything they had into a family farm or a restaurant or a personal business, whatever it was. And then they can't pass it on to their kids because the government is imposing too much in taxes to where the kids can't afford to pay it and then keep the business. That is what's really going on. Don't listen to the malarkey of the left. Fifth point. Trump is going to simplify the tax code. Hillary is not going to simplify the tax code. So right now, this tax code has 7 brackets. Trump wants to simplify it from 7 to 3 and make it a flat rate for every bracket there. Why is this such a big deal? First off, do you know how much we as Americans spend every year around tax time to be able to file our taxes? It is a multi-billion, with a B, dollar industry. That is billions of dollars that we Americans are spending to try to figure out the 70,000 page plus tax code and try to find every little tax exemption, every whatever we can to put more money back into our pockets. It's almost insurmountable. Imagine taking even a fraction of those billions of dollars wasted, and I'm not even including all the man hours that also gets wasted as well. But imagine taking just a fraction of that money and just putting it right back into the people's pockets. You know what I paid last year to have my taxes done by, I don't know, should I say the company's name? It's a reputable company. I'm not trying to say that they're disreputable, but H&R Block, okay? They do a good job, and I like the fact that they do guarantee that their tax filings will not result in me getting an audit, and if it does so happen, they will absorb the cost of the audit, and they will be the ones that will put up their lawyers and so forth to be able to fight it. So I do like that about H&R Block. But last year, my wife and I went and did our taxes. We ended up getting something like, I think it was like $650 back on our taxes. We had to pay H&R Block $350 just to do our taxes. So yeah, kind of wondering if it's worth doing it in the future. Now, imagine if the tax code was simplified to where you could do the taxes on your own. Well, in that case, I would get $650 back if just assuming that, let's assume that the same economic situation of last year and this year, and let's also assume that it's the same economic rate. There's been no added regulation and so forth. Just take the same conditions year to year. If I didn't have to spend $350 to file my taxes, that means that A, I get that I don't spend that $350, so I can put it towards something else, and B, when I get my tax return, I get the full amount of my tax return, so I get $650 back, which I can again put back into. I got a lot of home projects right now, so I could do home projects. We recently just hired a contractor to fix our back door and put in a French door there. Imagine taking that $650 and hiring a contractor to come out and do some work for your house, or buying a tool that you needed so you could do the project yourself. I mean, the more money we have back in our pockets, ladies and gentlemen, is what drives this economy. And by simplifying the tax code as Trump proposes, we would have more time and money given back to us to be able to put more effort and more back into the economy to help this country grow. Hillary will not do that. She will not simplify the tax code, and she's going to keep it intentionally complicated because that's how they control you. The left wants to control you above all else. And if the more that they make it so that you yourself cannot do your taxes on your own, the more power that they have over you, and the more that you have to rely on third parties to be able to get through the tax, and it causes you more stress. You have to work harder because you have to be able to afford to pay somebody else to do your taxes. I mean, it's a real nightmare. But that's the left's game. Keep you busy, keep you constantly worried about, is the IRS going to come down on me because I accidentally added the 1 and the 4 and I put 6 stupidly instead of 5. I mean, it's stupid stuff like that. But the more that they get you scared at the fact that you could get audited and have your life completely ruined by the IRS, the more power they have over you. Simplifying the tax code takes some of that power and puts it back into your hand, because now you're able to do it yourself and not have to, again, waste time and money, but also have an easier time understanding what all is in the tax code. Point number 6. Trump is going to add a tax deduction for child care expenses. Hillary is not going to have that deduction. So, in one of my previous blogs, I had meant, it was the RNC speech when Ivanka Trump came up, and she had talked about how they were going to make childcare affordable for families. And I said, you know what, I'm a little leery about this because how are they going to do this? I don't want a government program, But, I'm open to the idea that, if they do a tax cut or something like that, okay, I could do that. Well, this is what they're doing. Thank you. I'm glad that you're not going to create some new special government program that is going to quote pay for childcare with our tax dollars. This I can get behind with Trump. Go ahead. I mean, yes, you have to pay out of pocket up front, but if you can write that off in your tax returns, then you should get that money back. And that's a good thing. And I think a lot of families would feel the same way about that. If they had the opportunity to write their child care costs off. I was talking with a friend at work who has one daughter, 5 years old, that they have to do child care for because she and her husband work. And they spend almost like $100 a week just to send their kid to a basic child care. That's, when you add it up, that's $400 a month. That's almost $4,800 a year. Again, I'm using the theme of putting more money back into our pockets because that's where it belongs. But imagine having that $4,800 back into your pockets. Hillary's not going to do that because she wants to take more money out of our pockets. So you be the judge on which one is the better plan off of that one. But I think I know what I want to do with, or want to go with. Point number 7. He is going to remove Obamacare, repeal and replace it. She is going to keep and expand Obamacare. Why should this be on the forefront of everybody's minds? Because Obamacare is a effing boondoggle that is choking this economy. You want to know why Obama's going to finish out his term as the only president in United States history that has not seen a 3.0 GDP or above in his entire 8 years? Biggest reason is Obamacare, because it's putting such undue stress on employers and businesses to have to comply with a myriad of BS regulations. And by trying to comply, I mean they're spending a lot more money to try to keep the government from shutting them down because of all these regulations. And going back to the whole, you stop putting regulations on business. So, all right, anyway, Trump is going to repeal and replace it. So no more penalties every year for not having health insurance. No more paying out the butt for the health insurance that you have now. I mean, premiums have gone up, I think on average like 50% across the entire the entire nation. And then when you combine that with the fact that you have deductibles that can range anywhere up to like $10,000, for a single visit, who can afford that? All right. Anyway, Hillary is not going to get rid of Obamacare. In fact, she's going to continue to expand Obamacare because one of the first things that her mentor Saul Alinsky wrote in his book Rules for Radicals is that if you want to control people, you need to control their health care. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's going to push the system to the point where everybody's going to get so pissed off with it, and then she's going to come and say, oh, well, don't worry, we're going to go to single-payer system like Britain, like Canada, like a number of these other socialist regimes. That never works. It never works. And I could go into why it doesn't work here, but that's not the purpose of this talk. If you really want me to go into why, please let me know, and I will put together a separate video going into why it doesn't work, or you do the research on your own. Last point. Point 8. A lot of the pundits and the DC class are saying that Trump's plan is going to raise the debt burden because by cutting taxes, there's not going to be enough money flowing into the economy. However, that is not what is going to happen. And traditionally, when you look at the times that taxes have been cut, revenue within the government raised under Reagan and went from the tax revenue went from $500 billion when he started to $1 trillion by the time he left in 8 years. And a big portion of that was by cutting taxes. So don't believe in this malarkey. Now, why did I include this as a point here? One, if Trump is smart, which I believe he is, but if Trump is smart, he will cut taxes, which will cause more people to be willing to pay their taxes instead of trying to hide under the table, take under the table payments, jobs, whatever they can. Also, keep businesses and the super rich that can afford the best CPAs to find every little tax loop and hidey hole to hide their money. By getting them the opportunity, by making it so that they don't get penalized as much under the current tax code, you will see more revenue go to the government. And then Trump has also hinted that he will cut government programs, fraudulent government programs. Within the first 100 days, he's going to start doing that. So what does that mean? It means that you're going to have an increase in revenue to the government, and you're going to have a decrease in government spending, and that means that there's going to be more money going into the government, which people say, well, that's, you just argued for why that isn't a good thing. Yes, it's not a good thing, except for right now we're $19 trillion in debt, and we really need to pay off that debt. And I think that's what Trump is shooting for with his goal here. Contrast that to Hillary Clinton. She is not going to cut taxes, which means that less and less people are going to be willing to pay their taxes. They're going to find every means necessary to hide their money, to get out of taxes, to not file, to whatever you want to say, to put their money in offshore accounts. And then at the same time, she is going to expand the role of government. It's a 1-2 punch. She's going to make it so that people cannot afford to live without government assistance, which means that she's going to have to expand the government assistance programs and put more people onto the government plantation and have them be slaves to government welfare. That's her end goal, is that she wants to enslave everybody into the welfare system, because it is very hard to get out of the welfare system once you get into the welfare system. And that is a statistically proven fact. By making it so difficult to get off of the government teat, she's essentially going to create an entire underclass of people that are dependent upon the government assistance. Well, where does government assistance come from? It gets funded by our tax dollars. The whole scheme is so incestuous in nature that it just creates a circular firing. It just creates a circular pattern of suck that once you get into it, you cannot get out of it. But that's their goal, because they want to control you. And the easiest way to control you is you make it so that you're not independent, that you have to be dependent on the government. But to be dependent on the government, they have to take taxes to be able to fund it. They have to expend government programs, but in order to be able to expend it, they have to increase taxes. They have to take money from somewhere else. Going back to what I said before, that the government does not expand wealth. The government destroys wealth, because every time that they take money out of the economy, they just put it into their system, and it just stays within their system. So that's exactly what's going on with taxes. At the same time, her programs, because they're going to draw in less tax revenue, and she's going to expand the government programs, meaning we're going to be spending more every year for government, which means that the debt is going to explode again. It's probably going to double again under her, like it doubled under Obama, which means that we're going to reach a critical mass of debt to where either this complete economy is going to crash and burn, this country is going to default, whatever happens, it's finally going to happen under her. Under Trump, he's going to cut taxes, put more money into our pockets, which is going to boost the economy, generate more tax revenue towards the government, and then at the same time, he's also going to cut government and take again, I'm assuming here, but looking at the fact that he's a successful businessman, and you can't be a successful businessman if you do not, A, generate wealth, and B, control your debt. I think that's what he's shooting for here, is that he is going to start paying down the debt, and I think he even mentioned as much. He's going to pay it all off in 8 years. Now, can we pay it all off in 8 years? Well, I'm sure it's possible. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get the entire $19 trillion within 8 years. But who knows? He may be able to. But that's so far a better option than Hillary Clinton doing the same old status quo, and which, it is going to eventually destroy this economy. So just to recap, real quick, what the 8 points of of both these economic plans. Point number 1, Trump is going to cut taxes. Hillary is going to raise taxes. Point 2, Trump is going to cut government regulations. Hillary is going to increase the amount of regulations. Point 3, Trump is going to cut the business tax from 40% to 15%. Hillary is going to either keep the rate the same or she's going to increase it. Point 4, Trump is going to kill the death tax, thereby helping out the family businesses and family farms that are hit hardest by this monstrosity. Hillary is going to keep it. Point 5, Trump is going to simplify the tax code, putting more time and money back into our lives. Hillary is going to keep it the same and even make it more complicated. Point 6, Trump is going to provide tax deductions for child care expenses. Hillary will not. Point 7, Trump is going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Hillary is going to keep and expand Obamacare. And point 8, Trump will raise tax revenue into the government, all the while finding places to cut wasteful spending, fraudulent spending, and so forth, and pay off the debt. Hillary will do more of the same as Obama has done and will push this country to a critical point where it cannot accumulate any more debt, and this country will fall apart under it. So, those are my 8 reasons for why Trump's economic plan is better than Hillary's. Disagree if you want, but it's kind of hard to disprove what I've just said to you. And if you have any questions or comments how I can make this stronger, please, by all means, let me know. Now, moving on to the weekly rundown of major stories. Let's start with, the NeverTrumpers. Why? All right. If you hadn't heard, the NeverTrumping idiots finally found their candidates. And if you're wondering, well, why didn't I hear about it? Because let me just be perfectly honest. This guy is a complete loser. He has no name recognition whatsoever. In fact, when I heard his name, I thought to myself, who the hell is he? And the first detail that I found out about him is that he's a Mormon. Oh, so that's why they picked him. Anyway, the guy's name is Edward McMullen. He's a freaking rhino, establishment type, Mormon, as I said before. And if you're a Mormon and you're offended by this, okay, I am not picking on your religion so much as I am pointing out the fact that you guys have a very weird way of voting and being political. And this is one such case here. And I'm going to explain why in just a minute here. Anyway, so Edward McMullen, he's an establishment slime. Open borders, doesn't want to rock the boat, wants to just continue doing the status quo and so forth. Exactly what the NeverTrumpers want, because they make money off of being in power and advising Republicans to be losers instead of actually beating the Democrats. I digress. Anyway, so why do they pick him though? Well, the biggest reason because he's a Mormon, and what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get him onto the ballot in places like Utah, where there's a huge Mormon population, and their hope is that they can get it to where he takes Utah away from Trump and either give Hillary the presidency or prevents both those two from getting 270 electoral votes, in which case it's thrown into the House and Senate to vote on who becomes president, who becomes vice president, with the hope that their guy, Mr. McMullen, Lex Luthor Gollum himself, ends up getting the presidency. I'm going to try to say this as nicely as I possibly can, and also without incurring the wrath of the Secret Service and so forth. But Edward McMullen and the establishment cronies that put him up to this, I really wish that you would take a long walk off a short pier. You people are going to destroy this country because of your stupid, silly, egotistical pride. I've already ranted and raved and went off on you in my letter to Ted Cruz right after he backstabbed Trump at the convention. I'm not going to do that again here. I am going to say this, though. If your plan does happen to succeed, which I don't think it will, because this guy has no personality. He has a personality of a freaking piece of toast. And he also has no name recognition. And I think a lot of people have come to the conclusion that after Cruz's stunt that, we really need to get behind Trump. Anyway, but if your little scheme does happen to work, I guarantee you it will not save you, because all you're going to do is spark the civil war that I've been warning about, and patriots will come after you, rightfully so, and we won't stop until you and your family are eliminated from this country. I don't personally advocate for this. I do not wish it would happen, but I am telling you that it is going to happen because of how this country is right now. The state of mind of this country is right now. It is the same as right before the War of Independence in the 1770s. I am telling you, you are putting your own lives at risk by doing this. I implore you, please, for the sake of you, yourselves, and your families, come to your senses and stop this madness. Enough is enough with your stupidity. Moving on. Paul Ryan wins his primary. I really was hoping that Paul Nealon was going to win, but I also didn't really put too much hope in the fact that Paul Ryan was going to get out. It's very hard to get an incumbent out, especially one that has a lot of support as Paul Ryan. And I think he won his district with like over 80% support there. I don't like the guy. I really don't. I could go in and go on and on with it. My hope, though, is that because Trump endorsed him, when the time comes for Paul Ryan to start actually leading in the House, if Trump gets elected, I think Trump is going to use that to say, hey, look, I endorsed you for your primary. Now, this is the way you're going to treat me. I'm going to let it all out about our little, dealing about how you said you were going to support and back me for my endorsement. And it's going to become known that you're really just a little toady. And come next time, I'm going to do everything I can to get you primaried out. That's how I see that playing out. So we'll see what happens with Paul Ryan in the future. I'm pretty sure he's going to get elected, and he's probably going to stay House Speaker, unfortunately. But it is what it is. We can either throw our hands up in the air and just say, well, that's it, or we just say, okay, let's hold his feet to the fire and make sure that he actually plays ball if Trump gets elected. And if he doesn't, then we need to really push to get this guy out. Anyway. Next, we have more Muslim news. I hate talking about these people so much, but they're practically everywhere because almost every day now you have some sort of terrorist attack going on, and it's really hard to not have to talk about this cult without without some terrorist story or some other equally significant story about how this cult does not want to assimilate into Western civilization and why we are stupid into letting these people come into our communities and so forth. Are there individual Muslims that are good people? Yes, I've served with them in the military, okay, and I would serve with them again, although I never really fully trust them, and I still won't fully trust them, not until they reform their cult and change it from one of subjugation and death into what the Christians are, okay? One of, peace and truth. So let's just go ahead and talk about the first five stories. Let's go with story number one here. So we had a female Muslim in our Olympics team. And no, I've really not been paying attention to the Olympics this year because, actually, I don't really pay attention to the Olympics at all because it's nothing but a effing leftist utopian screed that always somehow uses capitalism to promote itself and yet rails against it in the same brain. It's just, and then at the same time, I'm also not big on listening to all these personal backstories. She overcame great personal adversity to become the champion of her high school and eventually go on to. I don't give a damn. Just show me the sport. Okay? I don't care about the human interest stories. I just want to see the competition. But you get 5 minutes of competition and 40 minutes of circle jerking with the athletes and what they had to overcome with their what they had to do. He fought a drug program. She had an unwanted pregnancy. I mean, just shut up. Show me the sport, okay? Anyway, that's another reason why I don't care about the Olympics. But I had to bring the story up because the first Muslim, actually not first one. We had a female Muslim athlete in the U.S. team. She was wearing a hijab, and she made a big point about it, okay? Well, she also made a big point of dissing not only the American team, but also dissing America itself, especially for the fact that, over the whole hijab thing. Well, the team, at the opening ceremony, they had to pick who was going to be the person going to hold the flag and, quote-unquote, represent the country coming into the stadium there. Well, everybody voted for Michael Phelps because, the guy, for all his faults and problems, he's still a pretty damn good American. And the fact that he's won as much as he has, yeah, he deserves to hold the American flag because we're a nation of winners, we're not a nation of freaking losers, and he's the winningest, most athlete that on our team, at least as far as I know of. So they originally voted for him, but then political correctness swept through the whole crowd, and so they tried to change it so that, why don't we let the female Muslim hold it because we want to show that we are diverse and we accept diversity and all that. Thankfully, Michael Phelps held on that flag and didn't give it to the hands of that scum-sucking SOB female. Actually, I can't really call her an SOB because she's not a son. DOB. And if you don't know what a DOB is, then whatever. You're stupid. Second Muslim story. Oh, yes, we had an interesting appearance at a Clinton rally down in Kissimmee. The father of the Pulse shooter, who I will not name on this program because I refuse to give any sort of recognition to mass murdering idiots. I think they should die in infamy and enjoy the spot in hell they earned through their sins. Anyway, Sadiq Mateen is the father, though, of the Pulse mass murdering SOB that shot 49 people in the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. He was spotted right behind the Hillary Clinton campaign, he was spotted not only at a Hillary Clinton campaign, but he was seated right behind the stage where she was giving her speech at that event. Why is this significant? Two things. One, you don't get back there unless you're invited back there. And to be invited back there, you have to be known. And you also have to go through, a little security check there to make sure that you don't have any weapons or anything else because you have pretty close access to the candidate. Two, it is visible to cameras and to people watching at home. The people that are behind. Why do you have a lot of people sitting behind a candidate? Because you want to show diversity. You put minorities, women, so forth in there because you want to show that, hey, you know what, I bring all these people together. I'm the diversity candidate or what have you. So he was sitting back there, big red hat, signs, endorsing Hillary Clinton, and she of course tried to play it off as, well, I didn't know he was back there or whatever. Okay, you may not have known that he was back there, you personally, but your staff sure as hell did. And the fact that you would allow your staff members to put such a man back into your stands there shows what an incompetent boob you are. You are completely incompetent. Imagine, if you will, if Trump had put Sadiq Mateen back into the back behind him, or if he put David Duke, that stupid white supremacist KKK idiot, there, or if he had put Dylan Roof's father. I mean, pick any scumbag that you will, and if Trump had done that, the media would have excoriated him. They didn't really do that with Hillary Clinton. In fact, they never do that with Hillary Clinton. Anyway, so not only did Sadiq Mateen sit behind the Clinton rally, he endorsed her, and then her campaign was slow to disavow. In fact, I don't think she really even gave a full-throated disavowment of his endorsement. Trump got excoriated because David Duke, the nut job, said, "Yeah, I support Trump." And do you disavow David Duke? Yeah, I disavow him. Okay. And then next week, do you disavow? Yeah. Next day, do you disavow? Yeah. You asked me 12 times. Okay, nothing's changed in those 12 times, but they want to try to trap Trump because they want to try to pin him to racist and bigots and so forth. Meanwhile, you have a mass murdering father who has come out himself and says he supports the Taliban, a terrorist organization, and also supports the killing of homosexuals. Gee, I wonder where his son ever got the idea about going into a gay nightclub and shooting up the place. I don't know. Gee, maybe he got it from the internet. You know, some evil, white, gun-toting, Bible-thumping supremacy group. Oh, I hate living in this world sometimes. Okay, story number 3. Pope Francis. As a Catholic, I am ashamed that he is my Pope. I'm just going to say that as nice as I can. I am ashamed that he is my Pope. And it's comments that what he made now, where he equivalated the Muslim terrorism that's been so pervasive in our world to Christians killing their girlfriends. Your Holiness, with as much respect as I can give to the successor of Peter, to Christ's representative here on earth, that is the dumbest thing I have heard come out of your mouth. And I've heard a lot of stupid things come out of your mouth. It is not the same. Christians killing... let me back this up here. It is not Christians killing or raping or stealing. It is bad people. There is nothing in the Christian faith that allows for such behavior. Islam allows for such behavior. Islam commands that women be subjugated. Islam commands that homosexuals be killed. Islam commands that adulterers be killed. Islam commands it is right to steal from the infidel. Islam commands it is right to punish and subjugate the infidel. And I could go on and on and on. You either are intentionally misleading the public, or you are so irritatingly ignorant on this subject that you should not speak on it until you have looked at exactly what the Quran says, and only then make a judgment on it. I'm trying to be as nice as possible because I do not want to insult the Pope, but at the same time, this is really insulting to have to sit here and listen to. Story number 4. There was a terror plot in Canada that got thwarted. The father of the individual that was eventually killed by the police. I didn't know that my son was being radicalized, and this is why it is very important for parents to have an active role in their kids' lives. This is why parents need to probe into what their kids are doing and find out what exactly, their interests are and, what they've been doing, what they've been up to and so forth. Because you get this situation where, well, I didn't know. It seemed like a good boy. You're an idiot. And story number 5, and this one, like I said, it happened last night, so I didn't add it to my notes. But you have an update on the Twin Falls, Idaho situation. I've mentioned, just a quick recap: 5-year-old girl raped by three refugees from Iraq and Afghanistan. Somalia, Iraq and Somalia, I think it was. And new details are coming out that she was held at knife point. The kids anally and orally penetrated her. They pissed all over her, and the local authorities, the politicians, the media have not been helpful whatsoever. So last night, I posted it to my Twitter page because I was so outraged over this. A story from Breitbart.com where the former mayor and current city councilman, and I'm not going to name his name because I'm just going to, get angry just thinking about this SOB. But he posted to Facebook where he called the family liars and decried the quote-unquote racism towards these poor refugees. This is the state that we live in within this country. It doesn't matter that people had an injustice done about them. The fact that they are speaking out is causing the powers to be to tell them to sit down and shut up. We cannot sit down and shut up over this, ladies and gentlemen. And that is such a travesty of what happened to that little girl there. And there's more events that are happening in that city alone because of the refugees. A 30-something-year-old mentally handicapped woman was, I'm going to argue, kidnapped because the refugee took advantage of the fact that she was mentally handicapped, and instead of leading her home, led her to his apartment and tried to rape her in his apartment. That guy should never be allowed to see the light of day ever again. Lock him in the deepest, darkest hole and throw away the key, in my opinion. How could you do that to someone so innocent and vulnerable? Anyway, we have a big problem with Islam, ladies and gentlemen. Not just this country, but the whole world. And the sooner that we wake up and we address it, the sooner it'll get fixed. But until then, more people are going to suffer because of the gods of political correctness and their servants trying to force us to be multicultural and accepting of a barbaric and sinister cult. Getting off the Muslim thing now, we go on to another big story involving Trump. Everybody says that he stuck his foot in this one. No, he didn't. The media just blew it out of proportion here, but I mean, that's what they always do whenever he speaks. Anyway, the Second Amendment nothing burger that happened when Trump gave a speech and he started talking about the Second Amendment rights and how Hillary was going to take them away. And then he made comments to the effect of, once she gets the judges into the position, that's it. There's nothing you can do. Well, maybe there's something the gun lobby can do, but let's not go there. I mean, everybody in the punditry class was saying, "Oh, Trump just called for gun owners to assassinate Hillary Clinton, or to shoot her, or shoot the Democrat, or raise revolution." It's like, no. And he came out and the next day said, "No, I'm talking about the voting bloc. The NRA has millions of members, and they're one of the biggest voting blocs in America." Now, my own personal take on this, I don't necessarily buy what Trump was saying, because the way he had said it, I think he involved, we don't want to think about that because it's just going to be too horrible, okay? Well, why is voting horrible? But I understand that he doesn't want to give, any more concern over his words, so I understand why he would say that. But, I keep telling you folks that if Hillary Clinton gets elected, she is going to put judges in that will try to strip us of our Second Amendment rights. She has said that she wants to do an Australian-style gun confiscation program. If that happens, if she gets elected, and she will go for it because the left cannot have us have guns, because that means that they can't have complete control over us. They will try to take our guns by hook or by crook. When that happens, I guarantee you there is going to be a civil war, and it is going to be bloody. So I agree with Trump that, there are things that we gun owners can do. Right now, we can vote. We can certainly vote and keep Hillary Clinton from getting into the office there. And then if it doesn't work in the ballot box, then the only thing we have left is the bullet box. again, I am not advocating this for all you Secret Service punks and NSA assholes that are listening to this. I am not advocating revolution. I really don't want the blood of millions of people on my hands or my children's hands. But I'm just pointing out a simple fact. Historically speaking, in America, if you try to take our guns, we fight back. Just saying, you might want to look at history. We're not going to go down without a fight. Anyway, and then the other thing about this story is that CNN got caught in a huge lie by saying the Secret Service was investigating Trump over his comments, to which Trump almost immediately tweeted out, no, have not been questioned by the Secret Service. And then like a day later, Secret Service came out and said, yeah, Trump's right. We haven't been questioning this guy. There's nothing to this story. He didn't call for an assassination on Hillary Clinton or anything like that. So, yeah, CNN, you're full of it. So they got caught with egg on their face, and it's another reason why their ratings are continually going down. I mean, you have to suck terribly to go below MSNBC, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, they completely suck right now. More news on the polls here. 538.com found that a third of Bernie supporters will be voting for Trump, at least as of right now. That, of course, could change in the future, but, it is comforting to know that Hillary is still not very popular within her party, and especially among Bernie supporters. You also have an interesting little story I heard about Bernie. He now has 3 homes. In fact, he just bought his third one within the last couple of weeks, a $400,000 home on a lake in Vermont. Now, why do I bring this story up? Well, let's just do a little thought experiment here. Bernie is an avowed socialist, and he has said as much himself. This is not me putting words in his mouth. He has said himself. The guy couldn't get a regular job until age of 40 when he finally succeeded in politics. Up until that point, he sucked. He was just a socialist bum that lived off of the good graces of others, and because of that, he didn't have a whole lot of money to his name. So he finally gets into politics, and he's not one of these politicians that sells themselves out to all these corporations and so forth. He has his Senate salary, and that's it. And then I think his wife may still draw a paycheck from the college that she bankrupted, but I don't know if they still do, if they kicked her out yet. I don't know. Anyway, the point being is that he just bought his third home, $400,000 worth of property on a lake. Does anybody kind of get the idea that maybe he was paid off by the Clinton machine to officially drop out? I mean, he argues that, he got concessions made for the DNC for his endorsement of Hillary Clinton, but we all know that the Clintons are notorious for pay for play. I'm not going to say this is the gospel truth, because there's no real way to prove that this could have happened. But I do think it's kind of interesting that so soon after spending a lot of money in a campaign to try to get elected, he's all of a sudden buying a very expensive home on a lake. Just putting it out there, folks. You can use this as you will, but I think he got paid off to be able to drop out of the race. I really think at this point that it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear to me, at least, that he got paid to endorse Hillary Clinton. Now, speaking of Clinton, we turn to the Assange files. Julian Assange is hinting once again at some very interesting things. One being that the DNC emails that he leaked right before the convention were possibly given to him by a DNC staffer. What is significant about this is that this staffer was found dead 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. at 4 something in the morning from a, as what cops described, a apparent robbery, quote unquote. The thing is, though, he was pretty beaten up. I think he was shot, which eventually killed him. But he still had his cell phone, still had his wallet, still had his nice watch, still had a lot of other personal effects on him that would have been some worth to some thief. You know, I may be a poor country boy, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I may not be all that learned up in the ways of the world and so forth, but, you know, it sounded to me like somebody in the DNC didn't like the fact that he was speaking out against Hillary Clinton, and you know, maybe they figured out that he was the one that done give him the emails to that Julian feller. You know, it could be that you know, what they call them, the mafia type hits, you know, just came on. That happened to the poor boy there. Yeah, I'm pretty darn sure that that's what happened. And in fact, it gets even weirder in that there was a apartment fire in Maryland. It actually was an explosion at an apartment and a subsequent fire. And 2 bodies that were found there, one of them happened to be another DNC staffer. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't need gun control. We need Democrat control. Voting Democrat or being in the Democrat Party is hazardous to your health. In fact, I think you have a longer life expectancy in the mafia than you do in the Democrat Party. Anyway, getting back to Julian Assange here, he's also hinting at that he has more emails to come, and what are in these emails through his through rumors and so forth is that Hillary and Obama armed up ISIS. Now, there was another little kerfluffle this week over Donald Trump's statements about how Obama and Hillary were the founding fathers, if you will, of ISIS. And the media raked him over the coals for it, and he eventually came back and said, I was being sarcastic after, you know, he said almost like 6 times or something like that they were the founders, and he stuck by his word on that. I don't know how you can be sarcastic with that, but whatever. Anyway, if these emails do come out, though, and it sure as hell shows that they were arming what turned into being ISIS, I guarantee you, folks, that this election will be pretty much over because enough Americans will look at it and say, okay, this is enough. This is the bridge too far. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, some are calling for Julian to go ahead and release the emails. I really don't want him to until October. I want this to be an awesome October surprise. But not only that, I know that there's plenty of other October surprises coming along the pipeline for Hillary Clinton. And I just want it to be just a constant barrage and that last home stretch. You know, as she's coming around the turn, coming in towards the finish line there, just all of a sudden the earth opens up and swallows her whole and she never reaches the finish line. That's what I'm hoping for with this. And then finally, Julian Assange also, his WikiLeaks also, I love this, released hacked DNC staff emails and phone numbers, including Nancy Pelosi's email and phone number. And she's been getting a number of quote-unquote sick calls since then. There is something going on. I mean, yes, there's always something going on. But there is an outside power that is determined to take down the Democrat Party. Now, I personally believe that this is being allowed by God because the Democrats are pure evil, and I think that enough people's prayers have finally reached God to where he's going to take pity on us and deliver us from these scum-sucking wretches. Now, how is he going to do this? I think it's, I don't know. From what I've been reading and from what I've been, from just using my own methods of deduction here, I think it's, I think that the entity that's most responsible for all these leaks and hacks and so forth are the Russians. And I think the reason why Russia is my prime suspect in this is they it is not because the rumors of Trump and Putin having a cozy relationship that's been debunked. Trump himself came and said, "Look, I don't have any property in Russia, so how can I have a relationship with Putin?" Which makes sense because Trump goes and meets with the politicians wherever he wants to build to get favorable treatment and get good. So, yeah, I can see him. I can see that being completely true from his aspect. So then, why would Putin want to help Trump? Well, I think Putin is really sick of seeing idiots run America. Not because he somehow has he's secretly a good guy and he's secretly rooting for America and so forth. No, the guy's a thug. I mean, the guy is not he's not a good guy. Putin is not a good guy by I don't know how you would measure him against that. He's an ex-KGB guy. He's definitely done a lot of things that should have him be brought up on human rights violations. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, but so then why would Trump want to help, or why would Putin want to help Trump? Well, I think that he's sick of seeing Obama and Hillary Clinton and their ilk completely turn upside down the world stage. I think at his very core, Putin is a nationalist, and he understands that in order for a country to survive, you have to have a nationalistic pride in the country that you are leading. And he wants Russia to survive. He's a proud Russian. I think he sees similar qualities in Trump in that Trump is a proud American nationalist. And he also sees the fact that Trump is not going to try to stick his nose where it doesn't belong and try to stir up the hornet's nest to start a war to spread democracy around the world. I think he also sees in Trump a willingness to address the issues of ISIS and Muslim extremism and terrorism, which Russia has long had a problem with, especially with the Chechens. And I think that Russia would very much like to have us as an ally rather than as an enemy, especially with the tension between Russia and Turkey at this point. And Trump has hinted that he wants to renegotiate the NATO treaty. And I think that Russia would very much like to have America not have to come to the aid of Turkey if they decide to go to war with Turkey. They're like every however many years war that they constantly have. I mean, you talk about I don't know if you can call it a rivalry or whatever, but there is some definite historical tension between the Russians and the Turks. And they've gone to war like I don't know how many times in their entire lifespans, but it's a lot. It's like I think it's the most between any two countries, except maybe France and England. But that's another topic for another day. So that's just my. Don't take that as gospel truth. Okay, I'm just kind of throwing out some brain food just to see what you guys think about why Putin and the Russians may be helping to derail Hillary Clinton. Anyway, I'll tell you who is not also helping Hillary Clinton here is the FBI. Now, we all know what happened with Comey and how he basically read the Riot Act and how Hillary was, basically committed a whole bunch of felonies, but he didn't indict her. And then he gets called up on Capitol Hill, and Trey Gowdy asked them all those questions like, she said this, that's not true. She said this, that's not true. She said this, that's not true, and so forth. Well, there's been speculation that the FBI wants to investigate the Clinton Foundation because that's the hub of all of this. The Clinton Foundation, the pay for play, the money laundering, the foreign entities giving millions and millions of dollars to Clintons for favorable treatment and so forth. The FBI is running into a big problem, and that is in the form of Loretta Lynch and the DOJ. And they are not allowing the FBI to go forward with an investigation to get subpoenas, records, and so forth from the foundation to be able to prove their case. Well, the FBI just found a way around this. Instead of trying to go to a national level through the DOJ, they're now targeting the Clinton Foundation through a couple U.S. attorneys' offices, more local-based. One of them being based out of New York City. And the attorney that heads up that particular office, and I forgot the guy's name, it's some foreign-sounding name, but he has a reputation for going after corrupt banksters, hedge fund managers, politicians, and actually taking them down. He took down a New York politician, I think last year, 2015, and he has a very big reputation to where the politician he took down, he said at his trials, like, you can't effing talk about anything without effing this guy effing hearing you. I laughed at that quote. It was pretty funny. So, and then there's two other places which I haven't read up too much on now, but I know that there are at least 3 other U.S. attorneys' offices that are also investigating the Clinton Family Foundation as well. So this is going to get very interesting, folks. This is going to get very interesting. This could turn out to be another October surprise, which I really, really hope for. I just love surprises, especially when they take down a corrupt witch like Hillary Clinton. Oh, it's so delicious. And then more on Hillary Clinton here. She really, and her foundation, oh my gosh. I can't believe that there is not more backlash on this, but it is what it is. Clinton releases her tax returns and now is calling out Donald Trump to release his. He says he won't until his audit is done. Makes sense. But he needs to release his tax returns. Honestly, I think what Trump should say is like, look, I'll release my tax returns as soon as Hillary releases her transcripts from all the speeches she gave to Wall Street, and she releases her tax or her health records to see, what the hell is going on with her, why she keeps having like seizure-like symptoms and freezes up and so forth. I think he should do that. Anyway, sorry. Side point here. The point I want to make, though, is that in the tax returns, Hillary Clinton, she and her husband, I think it was like $13 million they made last year, they gave 9.8% of their wealth to charity. Oh, isn't that sweet? They really do care, and they do want to help out the everyday person, except 96% of their charitable contributions went to their foundation. 96% of their charitable contributions went right back to their pockets. The other 4% went to some desert fund that just so happened to also cut a check to the Clinton Foundation for pretty much the amount that was given to them. So when you think about it, 100% of their charitable contributions somehow ended up back in their pocket. If that doesn't scream money-grubbing SOB to you, I don't know what does. Now, moving off of politics, we're going to do a couple other stories here before we close out for the day. Macy's is going to close 100-plus stores, brick-and-mortar stores going to close, lay off everybody, and they're going to instead focus their efforts on their online store, or their online shopping. Now, I bring this story up to illustrate a couple points. One, a lot of stores are in this same position. That's because of the taxes, the regulations, the other burdens put upon by Obama. They are having a hard time trying to stay open and keep, their businesses open. Macy's is the latest example to this. So they're going to be shutting 100 plus stores, meaning that they're going to be laying off. I don't know how many thousands of employees, but there's probably going to be at least a couple thousand employees that are going to be laid off as a result of this, meaning that there's going to be more people unemployed. There's going to be more people dependent on the government, which is exactly what Obama, Clinton, and all the rest want. The other thing I want to mention is that Macy's did this to themselves in that they spat in the eye of God through their promotion of the gay agenda and other leftist evil causes, and then also by spitting in the eye of Americans when, if you remember last year, when Trump started getting traction in the Republican polls right before the primaries, and they decided they were no longer going to sell any Trump products. Well, of course, you're going to get punched in the face over that, because what you're essentially saying is we are going to support Americans because Trump is supporting Americans, and we don't like Americans, because even though they give us a whole bunch of money and so forth, because we're a bunch of idiots who want to support leftist causes that hates America. So screw you, Americans. We're not going to support your hero anymore and sell his products in our stores. And, of course, Americans took it about as well as we do anything else whenever we are attacked. I mean, we came out en masse and said, you know what? Screw you, Macy's. We're not going to buy from you anymore. We're going to do a massive nationwide boycott. Just like we did with Target. Actually, Target happened afterwards, so I guess Target would be Okay, sorry. So, I can't really say I feel sorry for Macy's. I do feel sorry for the people that are losing their jobs, and I do hope that they're able to find new jobs relatively soon. But as far as I'm concerned, until Macy's turns itself around, I'd rather just the whole damn company close down. That's just me, though. And last story I'm going to touch on today. We had an accident that happened at the Schlitterbahn Waterpark. Maybe you heard of it. Out in the Midwest, I think Kansas. They have a water slide there called the Varuk. And what it is, you get into this special little log flume-like thing. They strap you in, shoulder harnesses and belts, and then they drop you from 175 feet. You go zooming down at like 60, 70 miles an hour. Then you zoom back up, and then you crest, and then you zoom back down into a pool of water. Well, a 10-year-old boy went on this ride, and as a result, he got decapitated on the ride. I think it happened right after the first drop as he was coming back up, because they have safety nets covering the water slide to make sure objects and things don't fly out, as because you're going 60, 70 miles an hour down a really tall slide. You start feeling weightlessness at that point. So I think his head got caught in one of those safety nets and was decapitated as a result of that. Now, I don't bring this up to be depressing or sad. It's tragic. The child died, and thoughts and prayers go out to the family of it. But the response in the aftermath of this, people have been, and this comes at the heels of other accidents that have happened at other theme parks and other carnivals and so forth, where people come out and said, well, these parks aren't being regulated. There's not enough rules on there to make sure that people are okay. This is the point I want to make. This is how we get into the situation that we do with government regulations costing businesses an exorbitant amount to follow, because something happens, and then all of a sudden, we got to do something about this. We need a law. We need a regulation. We need to. No. We need to accept the fact it was a freak effing accident. The kids shouldn't have been on the ride because it states clearly on the ride they have to be this tall or at least 12 years old to ride the route. And the kid was 10 years old. How he was let on, okay, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that the employee at the top that was loading up probably didn't give a crap enough to measure the kid and perform a safety check. Okay, fine. That falls upon, proper training. It does not require us to have to rewrite all the regulations and rules to be able to stop this from happening again. As sad as it is to say, freak accidents are going to happen from time to time. It just happens. It's sad, it's tragic, and I hope that it doesn't have to happen again. But we shouldn't be getting government involved in this. We shouldn't be having government try to pass a rule to tell some business how they should run their business. Government doesn't know how to run business. Government doesn't know jack diddly about what goes into the daily operations of a business. I leave with this thought. Rather than turning to the government and getting them to, quote unquote, do something about it, why don't we do something about it? Why don't we instead use common sense? The kid was 10 years old. The ride says don't put the kid on if he's under 12. Okay, kid doesn't go on the ride. Ride says you have to be this tall to ride it. This person doesn't happen to be that tall. You don't put the person on the ride. It's not that hard. Girl's hair gets caught in a ride and rips her scalp off. Maybe you should tell customers to put their hair up. Keep your hands and arms inside the ride at all times. I mean, do we need a law that requires that everybody keep their hands and arms inside the ride at all times? Or do we just say, if you're stupid enough to put your hands and arms outside the ride and it gets knocked off as you pass a whatever, well, that's your fault. Let's stop with the stupidity of always getting up in arms about some sort of tragedy or injustice or whatever, and we just need to, pass more laws and regulations. No. We don't need to give the government more power. We need to instead use the common sense and the power that we have to set things right ourselves. If this company, Schlitterbahn, okay, doesn't update safety features, doesn't put, bigger warning, it doesn't do anything to help prevent this tragedy again, then what can we do? Well, okay, don't visit there. Don't patronize the establishment. And I guarantee you that the power of green is a lot more convincing to business owners than anything else, because if they're not making money, they're not going to stay in business. And these people want to stay in business because they don't want to go back scrubbing floors or flipping burgers just to make a living. There's a reason why business people or people that start their own businesses go into business. It's because they are so sick of having to work at somebody else's rules. And this may not be the case for like every single person, but a lot of people that start businesses, they want to do things their own way. They don't want to have to be under somebody else's rules and have to be at the mercy of a paycheck from somebody else. They want to have that little bit of freedom to be able to do what they want, to live their passions out, and still have a means to make money off of it. I mean, I'm trying to do that right now. I'm trying to start my own little company, making video games, because I love video games. I grew up with them. And the reason why I want to do this is, well, right now is to have a little extra side income in doing it. But I hope that one day that I could have my company grow and be large enough to where I don't have to be at the mercy of someone else's paycheck. That I could honestly say, I don't feel like wearing pants today as I sit here and make video games. Whereas, when I go into my regular job, I have to wear pants. I mean, I'm just using an example, okay? Don't think that I'm some sort of weird pervert that, likes to walk around without any pants on. But the point being is that at some level, business owners, those that start their own businesses, do so because they want to make money to where they can tell their other job to go take a flying leap. They want to be able to play by their own rules. They want to be able to do things their way, to live out a passion instead of being stuck in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, trapped, and just wondering where the time goes and not able to spend time with their family or what have you. Again, thoughts and prayers go out to the family of the lost a son. But for all that is good, people, stop it with the outrage of we need to do something and we need to get government in. Certainly do something. Hold the park accountable for either not having good enough safety standards or for not enforcing their own rules. But let's not put more undue burden on them by getting government involved. Because every time you get government involved, it always, always, always leads to negative consequences. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out for today. Thank you all again for listening. It's been a pleasure talking. Please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Twitter at Athanasius Rep. You can also find me on Facebook. Links provided in the description below. And I hope to again see you next time on the Athanasius Report. This is Athanasius signing out. Christ's peace upon you all.